Welcome to Continental Crime, the first ever global reading of crime and mystery fiction authors. My name is Eric Bietner, and we've gathered writers from all 7 continents across the earth to read to you from their crime and mystery fiction. Hopefully you'll hear a new voice from a new part of the world, and we'll have links to everyone's books below. For now, let's get started just on the other side of the international date line, down in Australia. Take it away, Andrew NETTE.
Greetings, my name is Andrew NETTE and I live in Melbourne, Australia. And I'm going to be reading from my second novel, Gunshine State, which has recently been re-released by Down and Out Books. Gunshine State is a heist novel set in Queensland, Canberra, Thailand and Melbourne. The main character is a man called Gary Chance. He's a former army driver, ex-bouncer and thief. And the first part of the book, from which I'm going to read, sees Chance in Surfers Paradise, Queensland, working for an ageing standover man called Dennis Curry. Curry runs off-site non-casino poker games and wants Chance and a number of other people to help him rob one of his best customers, who's a Filipino high roller called Freddie Gao. So here we go. Taverner said nothing to Chance on the drive to the side game, and apart from a brief greeting and instructions to bring Amber around midnight, Gao looked straight through him. Kerrigan answered the door at Curry's house, the same sullen bulldog look in his face. He grunted, escorted Chance to the back room. "Wait here," he said, and left. As Kerrigan shut the door behind him, Chance examined the pictures on the wall. Curry posing next to a large marlin, hamming it up with a group of Japanese sumo wrestlers, handing a giant cardboard cheque to a group of gaunt-looking children in pyjamas and their smiling nurse. One photograph was different to the others, a colour shot of Curry standing on a beach with a young male. The old man looked uncharacteristically stiff and uncomfortable, a blank expression on his craggy face. His young companion had a wild look in his dark eyes and a mane of long, unkempt hair. Interspersed with the images were framed newspaper clippings, tight newsprint on yellowed paper. Chance read the nearest article. Waterside War claims another life. It was an account of the shooting of a dock worker called Les the Ferret Newman in a Melbourne pub nicknamed the Bloodhouse. Although the place had been packed with drinkers, no one had seen a thing. An anonymous police detective said the slaying was part of an ongoing feud between rival factions of the ships, painters and dockers. The article was dated 1970. A grainy photo of the crime scene accompanied it. Beefy cops admiring a pool of blood on the floor. Chance had heard of the painters and dockers, a trade union active on Melbourne's waterfront in the 60s and 70s, a front for sly groggers, gunmen, pimps, armed robbers and standover men. So great had been the spoils from the union's illegal activities, factions had waged a prolonged and bloody battle for control. When civilians started dying in the crossfire, police launched a campaign to smash the union, sent its members fleeing across Australia. The good old bad old days. Curry stood in the doorway, a maroon dressing gown wrapped tightly around his frame, hands deep in its pockets. The cops ever find out who killed Newman? That sly little prick. Curry stood next to Chance, squinted at the framed article. Nah, don't believe they did. He grinned, walked towards the bar. Amber will be ready in a few shakes. Did Mal offer you a beer? No, not the friendliest chap. Just wary of strangers. Curry threw a can of beer to Chance, popped one for himself, drank deep. How's our Filipino mate? I dropped him at the side game earlier this evening. The rate he's losing, we won't need to rob the bastard, Curry belched. Managed to pick up anything else of interest? A slight tremor of panic rippled through Chance at the possibility Curry knew about the morning's activities. He looked at the old man, detected nothing behind the statement. No? Curry nodded slowly. I've known your boss, Mr. Long, for a long time. Had to count every penny when I dealt with him. He's still like that? He'd find a way to skin a maggot if there was a margin in it. Curry chuckled and drained his beer. Spent much time in surfers, Peter? Not since I was a boy. What do you think? Chance hesitated. Don't give yourself an aneurysm, son. Just making conversation. It's changed a lot. Surface may be having a few problems, but it'll bounce back. Always does. Best city in Australia, despite what those Mexicans down south say. A city built by men of vision, men who were prepared to put their money where their mouths were. Curry ducked behind the bar, emerged with another beer. I remember the first time I visited it. Wasn't much older than you are now. There was something about the place. It felt wide open, like anything was possible. No one gave a fuck where you went to school, where you were born. The only thing that talked was money and the weather. Compared to those shitty winters in Melbourne, sunshine all year around. Like the name says, it was a paradise. Still is. Amber entered, stood next to Curry. "You finished reminiscing?" she said as she took the old man's beer, sipped from the can. "You ready?" Her blue eyes regarded Chance from under her blonde fringe. Her manner was clear of any tension from the exchange in the car earlier that morning. When Chance nodded, she pecked the old man on the cheek. "Have her back safely and no funny business," said Curry, a broad smile on his face. Chance couldn't tell whether it was a joke or a threat. Thanks for listening, and now over to ELKA in Vietnam.
Thank you, Andrew. My name's ELKA Ray. I'm here in Hoi An, Vietnam. Today I'm going to be reading from my latest novel, Saigon Dark. The story is about a woman named Lily who's just lost her first baby. Lily's lying in bed, holding the dead body of her infant daughter, when outside in the street she hears another child crying. I shove my hands against my ears, unsure if I'm imagining the noise, but I can still hear it, a high-pitched wail. Is it in my head? Grief hits people in countless ways. I've seen bereaved parents do crazy things, become violent, deranged. Is the hardest thing to accept. Kids aren't meant to die first. They're meant to grow up and grow old, to outlast you. I inch closer to Evie's body and stroke her fine hair. Shh, I say, but I know she's not making that noise. Evie's gone, her body a shell. No movement, no warmth, gone. I'm just pretending she's alive, that we're both alive. I bite down on my lip, tearing it open where it's just started to heal. The taste of blood makes me feel sick, but I welcome the pain. It's something to focus on. I sit up and shake myself. I want that crying to stop. I need to know if I'm crazy or not. The sound seems to be coming from the road. I'm shaking again. When I stand up, the room spins. I haven't eaten enough. I bend over and wait for the worst of the dizziness to pass, then creep shakily towards the window. Hold its bars to stay upright, part the blinds. There are still stars in my eyes. Down below, I see an empty street, the darkness broken by one streetlight. In its orange glow stands a small child in a short dress. She's barefoot, her dark limbs impossibly thin. A shadow child. Am I imagining her? I blink. All of this might be a dream. I feel a moment of hope and bite my lip again. I raise a finger to my mouth, see a dark smear of blood. The blood tastes real, and the pain is real. I pull on my robe and make my way slowly downstairs. Each step hurts. The night air is cool. I can smell jasmine, sickly sweet. There's dew on the grass. I forgot my flip-flops. After unlocking the gate, I hesitate. What am I doing out here? Again, I have the sense this is all a bad dream. I need to go back to bed. I'm overtired, hallucinating perhaps. Dehydrated and famished. But then I hear her again, that high wail. I step into the street, leaving the gate ajar. The tarmac is covered with gravel, which hurts my bare feet. I tread slowly and carefully. She doesn't turn at my approach or when I speak, but keeps making that high-pitched animal wail, her hair a tangled black hatch and her thin shoulders heaving. Hello? I say it in Vietnamese. Hey, where's your mummy? She stops crying. When I reach for her arm, she turns, little hands forming seashell fists. I crouch down and she glares at me. It's Fulm, the squatter's girl. A film of tears and snot glistens on her face, dark eyes ablaze. Even covered in dirt and snot, she looks regal. She glares past me, like she doesn't see me. Fulm, I say, but she doesn't respond. Is she blind? Deaf? She swipes a small hand across her face. Then I hear something else, her father yelling. I turn to listen. A bottle smashes and he yells again, a cry of drunken rage, louder this time. I hear a woman's shriek and a child's wavering scream. There's a thump and a muffled cry, followed by a louder thud and fresh sobs. The squatter woman shrieks again, desperate, and a child wails. I want to cover my ears to block out the sounds of flesh being hit. Beside me, the girl raises her head, listening. She's quiet now. Maybe it's the sounds in the squatter's shack, or just delayed shock, but a wash of ice fills my veins. Already squatting, I curl up, hands shielding my head like the sky might come down. Another animal scream, and the ice in my chest shatters. The girl whimpers. When I straighten up, my head spins afresh. I bend over, waiting for the nausea to pass. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see the child watching me, thick eyebrows lowered. I have the hunched posture of an ape and must look threatening. It's okay, we're okay, it'll all be fine, I say, the first of many lies to come. My voice is laughably bright, like I'm on a kid's TV show. Her frown deepens. I can't just leave her here. Thank you. Now on to Mike NICOL.
Hi, I'm Mike NICOL from Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm reading from the beginning of my novel Of Cops and Robbers. The story is set mostly in Cape Town and centres around a private investigator, a surfing addict called Fish Pescado. This book starts a series featuring Fish and a lawyer turned spy named Vicky Khan. In this first novel, there's a revenge theme that has its origins in a series of government-backed assassinations. The Icing Unit, November 1977. They come down the street in a baby shit yellow Ford Granada, going slowly, checking out the houses. A whisper of exhaust smoke from the tailpipe, a growl where the pipe is rusted, holed somewhere near the box. 4 men in the car, all wearing sunglasses. The driver's got on racing gloves, olive-coloured racing gloves. The thing about him, his face is huge and red. He's known as the fisherman. The man behind him is leaning back, his face in shadow, a cigarette hanging on his lower lip. A cigarette he keeps there like he's breathing through it. He's got mad, wild, surfer blonde hair. The one in the passenger seat has his fingers steepled, but not in prayer or contemplation. The man behind him sports a rictus grin standard on his face, his arms out the window, big glitzy rings on every finger. They rumble at a crawl down the street in their baby shit yellow Ford Granada. The men are all carrying Browning HPs modified for screw-on silencers, special issue for the job. The one with the rictus grin also carries an Italian stiletto, his weapon of choice. This one a 9-incher with a hilt inlay of mother of pearl. Very snazzy to his way of thinking. They approach the house. No car in the driveway. The gate in the low wall is open onto a short slasto path to the front door. Rictus grin and Blondie get out, their soles slap on the stone. Rictus knocks, sees the bell push, jabs it with a thumb. Bing bong. They wait. Hear a woman's voice talking on the telephone, saying goodbye. Rictus looks at Blondie, raises his eyebrows. Who's this? The turn of a key in the lock. A woman opens the door. Short hair, pretty face, long eyelashes, green eyes, no colour on her lips. Wears a brown dress to her knees, bare feet. Says brightly, "Hello, meneer. What can I do for you, gentlemen?" Rictus doesn't miss a beat. "Mevrouw." "Ja, mevrouw, we're supposed to meet your husband at 6:15. He glances at his watch. 5 minutes ago. Sorry, we're late. You're early, he's late, she says. He's not here yet. Rictus, with his hands bunched into the pockets of his bunny jacket, he and Blondie not moving. Is it about constituency matters? Rictus nods. It's not that important. The woman smiles. Why don't you come in and wait? If he said 6:15, I'm sure we won't be long. She leads them into a dining room, a table piled with stacks of papers. This is his office, she says, closing the curtains. She turns to face them, palms out towards 2 easy chairs. Make yourselves at home. In that moment, seeing the gun in Rictus's hand, the fear ritzing her face. Rictus shoots her one-time chest shot straight through the heart, what the newspapers will call point blank. Then he's at her with the stiletto, grunting with each stab and pull. Blondie's rooted to the carpet. The speed of the other man's mania brings a sourness to his mouth. He lurches towards the partner, pulls him away from the woman's body. She's on the floor, ripped and still, her face untouched, her eyes open, pearly teeth glinting between her lips. Rictus wrenches himself free, bloody stiletto in his right hand, the Browning HP in his left. Blondie still hadn't seen him pull either weapon. Blondie shouting, "Stop, stop, bugger it, stop!" At the same time, the bells bing-bonging because the other two, the commander and the fisherman, are outside the front door. Okay. Rictus bends down to wipe the knife from the woman's dress, comes up folding the blade into the hilt, crimson stains on the mother of pearl.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Marland from Milton Keynes in England, and I'm going to be reading to you from my book My Little Eye. My Little Eye is set in London, and I'm going to read the first chapter from the protagonist Clementine's point of view. Clementine is a academic researcher, and she's also a huge true crime fan. Chapter 1, Clementine. They say I was dead for 3,006 seconds. They say that when I woke, I was different, but I don't know if that's true. What I do know is that my world became a different place once every one of those precious seconds had expired. People, Mother especially, seemed to move around me at double speed, talking, always talking, while I remained stuck on go-slow, unable to shift the fog of sleep that remained in my head no matter what I tried. They said I'd get better, that everything would be okay. I just needed to give myself more time. But even then, through the bewildering haze of the drugs and the pain, I knew that they were lying. Reality was the problem. The facts could not be hidden under my bandages. A word, a single whispered truth, repeated in my mind over and again, and I knew that it was right. Murderer. First the doctors made excuses, said I'd suffered extreme trauma, that stress and shock took time to heal. They spoke of the panic I must have felt in that place, the terror as the flames surrounded me, the horror as I watched his life ebb away. I don't remember those things. What I do remember is the shouting, the fury burning my mouth as I spat the words, "I hate you." The rage building inside me until I couldn't control it, didn't want to control it, until I let it control me. Since that moment, I felt nothing. As seconds became minutes, minutes added into days and days into months, I got used to the nothingness. Like the skin grafts, it became a part of me. Sometimes I wonder if that's when I really changed, but I cannot remember. It's possible I've always been this way. One thing I can attribute to that night, though, is my fascination with what if. What if I'd been at school that day? What if Father hadn't got so angry? What if I hadn't killed him? Before, I lived in the moment. After, I dwell on the possibilities of future moments, hiding behind theory and hypothesis, never taking action, never feeling alive. I want to change. I think I know how. You see, I've been watching them for a while. Thanks so much for listening, and now I'm handing over to Antarctica.
Hi, this is Matt Iden from Alexandria, Virginia, in the United States. I'll be reading today from my novel, The Winter Over, which is set in Antarctica. I'll be starting at the beginning of the book, where the protagonist, Cass Jennings, makes a horrifying discovery on the ice just outside the research facility where she works. And now, to the South Pole. The woman's arms were spread wide, open to the world, as though she were asking for a hug or just starting a snow angel. One boot, ridiculously oversized, was turned at an obscene angle. The other, held rigidly in place by its thick plastic and neoprene, pointed toward a dishwater gray sky. Reflective goggles and a thick balaclava hid her face, but a delicate lattice of ice crystals framed her mouth and nostrils, a ghostly O and 2 dashes, where her once hot breath had frozen instantly in air that was 40 degrees south of zero. Ramps of snow leaned against the body's windward side, brought to rest against her by the constant Antarctic gales. Had they not found her, she would have been buried in 8 hours, maybe less, and she could have been someone else's discovery 100 days or 100 years from now. Through the rising wind and flurries, Cass stared at the body. It was tempting to imagine that there wasn't a person inside the cocoon of Gore-Tex and fleece, that it was just a pile of clothes stuffed into boots and gloves, a scarecrow dropped half a click from the west door of the Shackleton South Pole Research Facility to frighten the crew. Not a woman named Cheryl Larkin who had been vibrant and warm and alive 12 hours before. Each time Cass tried to wrap her head around the fact that she was looking at what was left of Cheryl, the thought wriggled away like an eel, refusing to be caught. Behind her own mask and scarf, her breath came in short, ragged plugs. Echoes of parting advice from her instructor back in Colorado Springs resurfaced now, counsel she'd laughingly taken for granted at the time. Never forget, Antarctica wants to kill you. Jennings! She jumped and turned to face Jack Hanratty. The station manager's voice, already gruff, came through his balaclava, sounding like a wood rasp. Help Taylor get that body on the sled, or there are going to be 3 more out here. Frozen, but not from the cold, Cass turned back to the figure sprawled on the ice. She did not want to touch it. The marionette-like lifelessness invoked another memory, and with it a rising tide of fear and anger. I'm a mechanic, not a medic. I fix snowmobiles and broken engines, not people. What in hell am I doing out here? Jennings! Hanratty's voice crackled again. I said, give Taylor a hand before we all freeze to death. I'm going to take a look around. Reluctantly, she helped Taylor maneuver the body onto a banana sled, hitched to a 120-horsepower Scandic snowmobile. The cadaver felt like a piece of lumber, frozen solid or in the process of succumbing to rigor mortis, or both. She'd hoped the mechanical stiffness of the corpse would make it easier to forget what she was doing, but the arms remained open and wide, still asking for that hug. Behind her mask, Cass bit down hard on her lip. Together, she and Taylor muscled Cheryl's body onto the sled. Once it was balanced inside, he pulled a nest of nylon straps from the Scandic's trunk and began the process of tying Cheryl down like she was a set of tent poles. Dizzy and numb, Cass watched him work, unable to look away. Like Cheryl, all of them wore the polarized, reflective ski masks that were standard issue at the South Pole, a layer of protection that was necessary to stay alive, but which swallowed up most of one's face and nearly all of the humanity. Cass knew she was just as devoid of expression as the others, but for some reason Cheryl's facelessness bothered her. The cold landscape, the cold death, the cold reality, combined with Taylor's and Hanratty's stilted businesslike attitude, it seemed as if a great and ancient law was being broken or ignored. Not thinking, she reached to move Cheryl's mask away. Taylor's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. You don't want to do that. Cass flinched, then retreated a step. Taylor had a dark reputation. Shackleton's chief of security was rumored to have history with everyone from Blackwater to Israel's Mossad, but he was probably right. If the sight and feel of Cheryl's dead body, hidden by layer upon layer of clothing, was almost too much for her to take, the image of her face would definitely send her to a place she didn't want to go. She moved farther away and watched Taylor finish tightening the crisscross straps. The body rocked with each tug. Hanratty approached, stomping through the snow. Taylor, you drive the body back. Doc Ayers should be waiting for you in the garage. No one except you two are to look at her, before I return, and not a word to anyone. You are coming back now? Taylor's twang, southern comfort with a hint of backwoods bayou, came through in the 5 simple words. I want to keep looking around. We'll join you in a few. The Met report said the next storm's due at 14:30. Taylor would never come out and chide his boss, but the warning was clear. Con, too. I know it, Hanratty replied, turning his face southwest into the thickening flurry. The blow that caught Cheryl probably covered anything worth seeing, but if we don't look now, for sure it'll be gone in another hour. What was she doing in the dark sector, anyway? I thought she was with the weather gang. No clue. She liked to jog. Maybe she thought she'd go for a long loop. Jennings, you're a runner. You ever come out this far? She shook her head. Was she a runner? Yes. 10 miles a day, every day, for years. Running away from something, running towards something, but never on the ice, where she didn't trust she'd ever come back if she dared venture out. On the far side of the skiway? Taylor pressed, gesturing. In bunny boots? Hell if I know, Taylor, Hanratty said, annoyed. Maybe she spaced out and started chasing sundogs. Get the body back to the station. We can spend the rest of the winter guessing. Back stiff, Taylor nodded once, then hopped onto the Scandic. The snowmobile's engine caught on the first try, and he motored back toward base, which was nothing more than a blue-gray Lego block at this distance. Cass turned to Hanratty. You want me along? You're not going to walk back, I assume, he said, swinging a leg over the saddle of the other snowmobile. And I want to be there. I can trust Taylor not to talk.
I'm Claudia Piñeiro. I'm a writer. I'm living in Buenos Aires, Argentina, South America. A crack in the wall. An angry man, a body on a building site. Secrets and lies in Buenos Aires are about the crack wide open. Chapter 1. Pablo Simó is at his desk drawing the outline of a building that will never exist. He has been making the same sketch for years, like a man condemned to have the same dream every night, one about an 11-story tower factoring north. There is a series of identical drawings in a file. He doesn't know exactly how many, but he lost count a long time ago. More than 100, less than 1,000. They aren't numbered, but each one is dated and signed. Pablo Simó, architect. If he wanted to know which day he drew the first one, he would need to find it and look at the date. But he never does that. The most recent bears today's date, 15 March 2007. One day he plans to count them all. This drawing of the same tower on the same plot of land with the same number of windows and balconies, identically spaced, always the same facade, the same garden and to the front and sides of the buildings, with the same trees, one on either side of the front door. Pablo suspects that if he were to count the bricks down freehand of the facade, he would find exactly the same number on each drawing. And for that very reason, he doesn't count them, because it scares him to think that this obsessive drawing isn't the product of his own application but of some external force. His age of an each Carandache pencil goes up and down the page, shading, retouching, and Simó tells himself yet again that he will build this tower one day when he finally decides to leave to the Borla and Associated architectural practice. But this isn't the day to make such decisions, and so Pablo tries not to dwell on the fact that he is already 45 and that this tower gets further every day from being anything more than graphic lines on a sheet of white paper, and that a mere 2 yards from him, Martha Horvath is carelessly crossing her legs as though there were nobody sitting opposite to notice. He noticed, of course, though Pablo Simón no longer thinks of Marta in the way he once did. Not that she doesn't want to, but for some time now, and he would rather not remember precisely how long, he hasn't been able to think of her without sudden and even violent interruptions to his pleasurable fantasies. It was different before. He used to dream of Marta all day, and in his mind he owned her, he undressed her, he kisses her, touched her, and since he couldn't foresee ever separate him from Laura, Pablo Simón imagined that if his wife died, as all of us shall die one day, Marta Horvath would cease to be simply that woman he undressed in his fantasy, and he would try to win her for real. 2 yards from where Pablo is drawing, with a skill that comes as naturally to him as walking, talking, or breathing, Marta sits at her own desk shouting down the telephone at a contractor. He's complaining that his man hasn't finished a cementing job on time. She says she doesn't care about the rain or the public holidays that fell within that month, much less about the transport workers' strike. She declares with a vehemence that is all too familiar to Pablo that she likes people who keep their word.
Hi, this is Eric Bietner from Los Angeles, California in North America. And I'm going to read to you from the opening of my book, Run Runners. This is a story that's set in Iowa, where I was born, not where I live now. And this is how the whole thing begins, where we're going to meet the protagonist, Calvin McGraw, who's a cantankerous old man. So here we go. There was a bullet hole in the window of the donut shop, pasted over with duct tape and an unevenly cut square of cardboard. It had been there ever since Calvin McGraw first came to the shop for a morning coffee and a glazed. But Calvin looked beyond the hole, an artifact from some long-ago robbery, probably. He didn't know how much they would have gotten away with from a donut shop heist. Not much, he thought. Instead, he watched the cars go by outside the greasy window. His 86-year-old eyes had barely lost any focus, and he mumbled to himself with each passing ride. Ford, Chevy, Ford, Chrysler, goddamn Toyota. His paper plate held only a sugary ring where his glazed had been, but his coffee was still tongue-scalding hot as he sat on the swivel stool and wasted another day. He didn't want to be watching cars. He wanted to be in them, driving fast. Cops on his heels, sirens and gunshots in the air, tires screaming, rubber burning, oil thrumming through a well-tuned engine like the blood pumping fast through his heart. Like the old days. Calvin still remembered. Running liquor through the Iowa trees, sneaking bales of pot across the river into Illinois, driving anything and everything for the Stanley clan as they built their criminal empire, such as it was in a lonely southeastern corner of Iowa. Even today, he thought he got out of the game too early. He could have still been driving, like his son, in his 60s and still taking jobs. It wasn't about the money anymore. Goddamn Stanley's never paid that well anyway. It was about the smell of gasoline and the feel of a pedal when it hit the floor and couldn't go down anymore. Now here he was, living in Omaha. How the hell did that happen? Outside, past the streaks of sugar glaze blurring the window, one of those electric hybrid cars passed by on a whisper. Disgrace, Calvin said out loud. What'd you say to me? Calvin turned. A skinny man in his mid-20s, but dressed like Calvin might have in the 1940s, glared at the old man. Nothing, Calvin said. No, you called me a disgrace. What did you mean by that? Ever since this place started making donuts with crazy-ass things like maple and bacon on them, bacon, for fuck's sake. These downtown types who seemed to think they lived in Brooklyn, not in Omaha, about as far away as you could get. They'd been taking over all the stools and raising the price on a cup of joe. I didn't say it about you, I said it about the goddamn battery car that passed by. And what's wrong with electric cars? Calvin rolled his eyes. He wanted to sit and watch his cars in silence. Longing and regret about the past was a solitary hobby. Nothing, other than everything. They're fucking stupid. I happen to drive a Prius. Of course you do. Calvin swiveled on his stool. He wasn't sure if the skinny guy was being bold because Calvin's age made him feel safe, but he was sure the guy had no clue who he was dealing with. Do me a favor, Calvin said. He curled his index finger twice to draw the man near. The hipster pushed his mustache closer, probably thinking the old man couldn't hear so well. Calvin grabbed him by the middle finger. He pulled it back until it nearly touched the back of the man's hand. The man opened his mouth in a silent scream, too shocked to yell out, or too embarrassed to be bested by an octogenarian. Listen, kid. Calvin tugged the finger closer to breaking. Just take your green tea dusted donut with quince paste filling and fuck off out of here. I'm drinking coffee and watching the cars go by. I ain't hurting you. The skinny guy was down to one knee now, wincing in pain. Oh, Calvin looked at him. I guess I am hurting you now, but I wasn't before. He released the man's finger. The hipster exhaled like he'd been underwater. Nobody else in the shop noticed their tussle. Calvin said, so beat it, okay? You're crazy. You could have broken my finger. Yes, I could have, and I didn't. Let's call that a win. Cradling his wounded hand in his other, the man grew a pair of balls again and aimed an angry mustache at Calvin. I could have you arrested, you know. I guess you didn't get the message, son. Calvin snatched the man's good hand, twisted his index finger while jerking up on it, felt the pop. This time, the guy screamed. Calvin lifted his coffee cup, still hot. He walked out. Thank you so much for joining us for Continental Crime. I hope you enjoyed all the readers from all over the globe. Thank you so much to all of our readers for being involved. And hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again. Leave us a comment below if you liked what you heard. Thanks so much.